and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
For the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And welcome to the show. We have another edition of WOW to cover and review. And so, as WOW giveth, they taketh away. Last episode, I said that I enjoyed that episode, and I did. The main event of that particular one was Reina Del Rey and Santana Garrett. Top to bottom, I enjoyed Genesis versus Ozzy. I even enjoyed Animal Instinct versus Rox Fierce and Santillicella, surprisingly to me. I even backed up, and enjoyed for whatever holes it might have had, Veronica Varoom and Xena Phoenix. The only things that I had problems with were the creative. And it was the minimum of that. And then I got to this week. And things changed. For a number of reasons. But, we'll get into those things as the show rolls on. And we address the why. As many of you may know when you listen to this, it's not necessarily the matches. The matches, by and large, if they're not good, most of them are passable. We'll say that. There's been some bad ones on there. Yes. But in fairness to the show, every wrestling show has bad matches every once in a while. Doesn't mean that I agree with the concept of just sticking the inexperienced in the ring on national television. But I will give credit where credit is due. Everybody has it. Bad match here and there. But overall, the matches, very rarely do I try to attribute as to the reason why I feel that particular way about WOW. Oftentimes it is, well, this doesn't follow that thing that you set up for 3 or 4 weeks ago, or this doesn't make any sense because there's no way that I can feel the way that you think I do about this particular angle, or things like that. The follow-up, the fall-through, the angle itself, storyline, however you want to put it, the motivation. Those things are largely the issues that I have. The babyface having an issue with a tag team because they have a locker room that's built for the dog. Okay. It ain't like it got gold bricks in the break room or something. Stuff like that is just so ridiculously small that you have to suspend all disbelief. HollySwag being swayed over to the dark side because of some scarves and a pair of sunglasses. Like, this is the high life. I want to live this. Things like that. And I know WOW as a company / creative force, whatever you want to call it, is either expecting you to overlook it or read between the lines and come to your own conclusion. But I disagree with it. Anyhow, I feel like I'm going into review mode already, which is a little bit early. I don't typically go into it at this point. But what I do go into is the news, views, and updates. And I will use that as a means to continue on my WOW rant as we kind of weave through that. So, let us move over to our next segment, news, views, and updates. And what is going on in the news of women's wrestling right now? One of the things is we have it's not a sighting, but I guess we're going to be prepared to see them coming up on American Gladiators. That's right. J-Rod and Camille are two names that are reported to join the American Gladiators reboot as, gladiators. It is interesting to think about what they may do with those two just on the show. One of my questions was, will they be, like, I can see J-Rod being J-Rod. I can see that, but are they going to do it? Especially since her wrestling persona is basically like the ultimate athlete. Now, she's supposed to appear on WoW at some point in time, and I believe that they've changed her name. I shouldn't even say should. You know that they were going to. But changed her name to something like Nikki Nashville. I believe that's her, which is, yeah. Especially now, it just comes off as worse. But I'm curious. I am curious to see whether they will keep her name as J-Rod. Because it's honestly not that far off from some of the names that the American Gladiators had in years gone by. Nitro, and Laser, and, Flame, and, stuff like that. I don't think that J-Rod would, the name at least, I don't think that would be completely out of place. Especially if they have brought those names or those type of names back. But there are other wrestlers that are going to be participating in it, obviously. But those two were the ones that I bring up because of obvious reasons. This is the Women's Pro Wrestling Network podcast, so we have to talk about that. But there will be others as gladiators on the show. I believe. His name just slipped my mind. Goddard, Jessica. I was thinking about his former partner, when they were on the show, and it just invaded my mind and just tossed Goddard's name out of it. But Mr. Spectacular, who has been on OVW in recent years, I believe he is set to be one of the Gladiators, Rick Boogs. He's going to show up on it. Wardlow, which where's Wardlow been? I guess it's good that he got this show, now that I'm thinking about it, because he wasn't doing all that much on AEW. And yeah, you have them, and it's hosted by The Miz. So, first off, good on Camille and J-Rod. I was just a little curious about the name. That's all. I mean, it's reported in the Hollywood Reporter under the names that they wrestle as. And I'm thinking if you are, and they did reference their real names, by the way. But I'm thinking if you're an independent promotion and they're still taking bookings, then I want to use the name that they were seen as on American Gladiators. They may get some fans based on this alone. I need to roll through this page and see where it's going to be airing. Okay, this is going to be on Amazon Prime. All right, so they could very well sink in a couple of million viewers, quite possibly. And if that's the case and they start developing a fan base based on them being American Gladiators, but they still take wrestling bookings, then yeah, I want to use the name that people know them as, or the most amount of people know them as. I cannot imagine they would change Jesse Goddard's name just because he has some past reality TV presence. So you might have some people that remember from that. You might have some people that remember from OVW. You might, and that how that's kind of moved on to a broader platform than just their location. It seems like that's what they're trying to do. But also TNA Wrestling, so I cannot see what the gain would be for changing his name. So I'm assuming that they would go with the names that they have, and if that is the case, I mean, putting myself in the shoes of any indie promoter that happens to be out there and wanting to book J-Rod or wanting to book Camille, if she's eligible to be booked. Now that I'm thinking about it, she might still be under contract. But if those things, if they are, let's just say, then yeah, I want to use J-Rod. If J-Rod is the ultimate athlete, not just in the wrestling ring, but on American Gladiators, that's who I want. Which makes me feel all the worse if they actually have her show up as Nikki Nashville. What a stupid decision that would be. But anyhow, moving on. Just to touch base on some past occurrences, we know that Naomi has won Money in the Bank. So great on her. She seems to be embracing the proceed with caution gimmick and this heel thing. And, good for her, man. Good for her. Because it's easy just to flip and not really change all that much. John Cena, for instance. I mean, a lot of people like him, but he hasn't, from heel to babyface, he didn't change all that much beyond the direction that he's spewing the venom, more or less. To flip and try to embrace a new persona altogether, that, yeah, it takes a little bit of work, And I think that she being Naomi deserves a little credit. I hope that this works out for her. She seems a little bit more unstable in this iteration of who she is, and she's got the chance to broaden her wrestling chops. I think she was kind of spinning her wheels there as Naomi Glow in WWE before she was released. And then she, I guess we can also include her being a Funkadactyl back then. But after that, then, she got to basically reprise her Naomi persona as herself in Trinity and TNA and go more or less undefeated until she ran up against Jordan Grace. Then she returned and she pulled the same gimmick, and now she's here. So it'll be interesting to see how well she can perform this new persona that she's created. Again, bravo to her. One of the things I will use this as a partial bridging point between overall wrestling and Wild Wrestling. I did look at a bit of the WWE AAA Worlds Collide event. I saw Daly's and Chick Tormenta in the ring with Vakur, and goddamn, I wish I wrote the other young lady's name down. But I did watch that match, and it wasn't a main event. First off, let's just start with that. So it's not like I was expecting the world out of it. I got a good match, and it was nice to see firsthand. We're obviously not in the building, but how Stephanie McCoy with a certain artist can really erupt them. It was nice to see that, because when her music played and the graphics came up on that screen, you could feel that she was a superstar. It just, she was about as hot as anybody else could have been, right? And, not for nothing, that right there is what I don't want to say the WoW roster should pay attention to. Maybe the people that run it. Reaction. Not fabricated and just nonstop applause by a curated crowd. A genuine reaction. That's what that was. But that is not necessarily why I brought this up. What I brought it up for is because Tormenta, who is airing currently on WoW, was at that event as Chick Tormenta in an entirely different look, more or less. Now, it was told to me some time ago by somebody in the industry that she had lost that match and for her mask a while back, and that WoW was, for lack of a better term, out of step with the timeline of that. Okay? So, because I wasn't really familiar, I didn't know that she had dropped the mask at that point when I was having this particular conversation. And that's been months ago. But now we're seeing her today. And her look has changed, but then on WoW, what that match served to do for me is it made WoW, it made it feel outdated. I cannot speak for everybody else, and I'm not trying to say everybody feels this way, but it did make it feel outdated to me. Because I know that the WWE is a up-to-date and current product. We all know that. Whether it's acknowledged by everyone or not, we all know that. That when you see a Raw, unless you're looking at it, purposely days after the fact, you know that Raw just took place. You know that SmackDown just took place. I mean, when you get into the other shows down the line, that changes a little bit, but not by much. Maybe you might be talking a week. With WoW, it's months old. Months. And that's not even an exaggeration. A lot of that stuff that we're watching now was shot in either August or September of 2024. That's a long time ago. And that one moment there, seeing her walk out there with a new look and, basically showing her face, a little bit of face paint on, just encapsulated that to me, for me. That this show is this, is this old show. I get production costs. I understand. I ain't saying that producing a television show is cheap or easy. But there has to be a better way for them to do this than produce all of their stuff like that. It has to be a better way. Cannot tell me that within the budget of that show right now, you can produce month to month. And if you can't, somebody needs to go over the budget again. Because you're spending your money wrong. You have to be. There's no way that under the budget that they have right now, and I'm saying that without having access to any financial records that WoW has. There is no way that you cannot produce that show month to month. You might have to change what goes on during the show and the tapings and whatnot, but there is no way that you cannot produce that show month to month. But, that does not seem to want to be the case, or that's not their plan. the match that spurned this particular train of thought, again, nice match. It was more or less a showcase, in my opinion, for Vakor. That felt like it was the primary goal there, just to, I want to say, make the crowd happy with her appearance. But make sure that we'll say the star. Make sure that the star of that match succeeded and in the match. Not just succeeded, shined. That would be, I guess, the better way to put it. So the match: Stephanie Vakor, Lola Vice, Chick Tormenta, and Dalius. Sorry. Worth the watch. You're getting what you pretty much expect. And if you have not seen it, it's about 47 minutes into the show. And I would say, just, if you haven't seen it, check it out. If for no other reason than to see Tormenta's present day look. And, just check out how the crowd reacts. And you would enjoy the show overall if we just talk about the entirety of the show. But I'm just pointing that out for the benefit of my show, being the women's pro wrestling thing and whatnot. But check that out if you have the opportunity and the time. Oh, speaking of the online wrestling that I was kind of perusing, there was one that caught my attention by House of Glory. House of Glory recently had a women's wrestling match. And when I saw it, it happened to upload on the same day as WoW uploads their videos. In other words, it read upload 3 days ago. The other one read 3 days ago. So, it was, it wasn't down to the minute, I'm sure. But it was on the same day in how YouTube collects his views, on a daily count. So I found it a little bit interesting to see what those counts were. Considering that considering that WoW is a national product and listed on YouTube, there's a part of me that expects a larger viewership than what they have at times. Like, I want to believe that. It's hard sometimes, but I want to believe that because they're on national television, it will drive some of that interest up. But the numbers here did not really favor that. First off, the match in question from House of Glory is Deonna Purrazzo versus Carissa Rivera. And that match uploaded the same day as 4 different videos of WoW. Those matches being Princess Aussie versus Genesis, Veronica Maroon versus Zeta Phoenix, Animal Instinct versus Chantilla Chella and Roxy Fierce, and Santana Gad and Raina Del Rey versus Raina Del Rey. Now, before I go any further, this is not a knock on any talent that I just mentioned. And I say that solely because I'm only using this to kind of make a point of sorts as to the value that WoW seems to offer. So, bear in mind, House of Glory is an independent promotion. and to the best of my knowledge, does not have television. I'm sure it is distributed in some other fashion beyond YouTube. I would guess that. But I, again, best of my knowledge, do not know if they have some sort of television deal outside of their local market. I'm not even sure if they have that. But Purrazzo versus Rivera, 3 days from its upload, listed at 31,000 views. Three days out from their individual and respective uploads, Princess Aussie versus Genesis got 2.7 thousand. Veronica Varun versus Xena Phoenix got 1.7 thousand. Animal Instinct versus Chantel Chella and Roxy Fierce, 1.8 thousand. Santana Garrett versus Randy Del Rey, 2.3 thousand. None of that anything to be ashamed of, or or upset about, or whatever. I'm just saying it's somewhat hard to believe that a national product doesn't drive more interest for people to want to see the match on, even if it is technically a repeat on YouTube. It's just hard to believe that. I mean, that's like it's average for the viewership of that stuff. When people like a star, they will seek them out and they'll want to watch what it is that they're presenting. This just didn't feel like they had anything that no one wanted to seek out. It was more like we want to watch that show or these people, but there's no particular one of them that makes people interested. And that's a shame. Truthfully, there are talents that have walked on that show with credibility underneath them going into it. Santana Garrett, Reina Del Rey, even though she worked under a different name on WoW and works under a different name on the Indies, she walked into it with credibility. Princess Aussie walked into that with credibility, and Jesse Jones and others. But it's like whatever credibility that they had having worked on the independents did not do enough to lift that show up on its syndicated national stage. Again, when I think over it, it's somewhat hard to believe. But it's like that show did more to drag those individual persons, and it's more than what I just named, down, rather than the show elevating them. It sucked the credibility dry. Some people should be watching just because Santana Garrett is on it. But and maybe they are, but it's not nearly enough. It's amazing because I know the effect that this House of Glory match has. It's because Deonna Purrazzo is in it. She does have name value. I mean, just think about that. But because she's there, there's somebody, the wrestling fan base looked at it. Why? Because she's been on a higher rated wrestling show before and positioned in a pretty great spot. And she is somebody that wrestling fans are very familiar with, having gone between WWE to TNA for a good run, appearing on NWA wrestling shows, and popping up on AEW, even though they've done horrible by her. She still has name value. She's been presented as a star. And it's like, almost no one on WoW is presented as such. They're just kind of there. It's hard to say that, and in some regards, but I don't feel like it's wrong. I do feel as if WoW as a product kind of drains some of them in favor of trying to make these new, and I'll use the word, characters. They didn't get Amazing Maria, they got Big Rig Betty. They didn't get Marina Tucker, they got Penelope Pink. You see where I'm going with this. And some of them were able to get past that. Big Rig got past it. Jesse Jones got past it. Del Rey got past it. Pink got past it. And others, HollySwag, they got past the goofiness of the gimmick. Princess Aussie got past it, barely. But, I mean, they were able to survive the silliness of their gimmick, but it just wasn't and isn't enough. I mean, when I think about the idea that House of Glory on an average upload can get basically the same amount of views and triple or double it. I mean, double or triple, going in reverse. Double or triple it. And, in relatively short time over what would be considered a national brand is kind of amazing. It shouldn't be happening because you would expect the bigger stars to be there. But it's not. There's a match that, as of this recording, uploaded 2 days ago. They're already at 8,000. And that's usually a little higher than what WoW will produce. The match in question is Megan Bayne and Kyla Ray, by the way, so if you wanted to know. But it is nothing on the talent. I just look at WoW at this point, and I think it has gotten largely to its core. There's going to be people that watch WoW. I just don't know how many of them. It's like they've been perfectly fine with just producing this for their core audience and nothing more. Let's not even try to get this thing right so other people will stick with it. I don't know what to say. It just gave me the sense, looking at the difference between those two videos, and I know it put me into some deep thought there, but it just made me feel like WoW doesn't create stars. Like they may feel like they do. WoW does not create stars. That one match had more views than the entire show, which had a 2-day jump on it. Just think about that. That show went up in 5 days at the point that I saw it. House of Glory with Peraza and Rivera 3. The talent can only do so much. The creative has to get behind them somewhere, somehow, and go on a mission to try to make somebody feel like a big deal. If there's problems in the locker room where somebody's going to be like, why shouldn't it be me? I mean, look, that may happen, but somebody has to be the star there, or a star, just to get people interested in it, or maintain interest, or get more, get more eyes, more people that's curious about it. Make the people feel like they're even if they didn't want to admit that they're stars, they might just look at them like they think they are. So maybe that'll draw some curiosity all the same. I wish they would get behind a Santana Garrett and put the, thrusters on her, or Princess Aussie, or whoever. A top heel. Somebody that's supposed to be a larger than life thing on their show. But I've lost that faith also. I think WoW is happy with WoW being the brand and everything else just players within it. I don't know. But that was just an interesting note for me. And then I looked further down the line on their uploads at that particular point. I was just curious, does the WoW Championship get more people interested in what's going on? Is it important enough to their wrestling fans that they would go and seek out a match or something like that? Pale and Mayfield versus the Classmaster, the WoW Championship match. At 11 days to Perazo and Rivera's 3, at 19,000. House of Glory, again, in those 3, 31. Which makes me feel like there's certainly more interest in Deonna Purrazzo, champion or not, versus this person that, honestly, up until I saw this match, hadn't heard of. This was the first time I heard of Carissa Rivera. So I couldn't walk into this saying that it was going to be some sort of amazing match. I didn't know. I looked at it because, I see Deonna Purrazzo. I know her, like I'm sure a lot of people did. And I'm interested in seeing what she's doing. It just never feels like WoW goes out of the mode of that. Make somebody a star so we can feel like I want to see what this person's doing. What are they about to get into on this show? Who is it that they're going to be wrestling? Because I know the match is going to be good. Those things. But anyhow, that was a little sidebar there. So, since I have drifted off and I started talking about WoW and not ratings, but is viewer data online as we speak, I guess that is an appropriate time to just move on into the thick of the show. So, I'm going to do my normal break here. Hopefully, I found some good promos, because I try to seek some out of the ether of the internet and independent wrestling across the country, sometimes beyond that, to upload as my new little segment here, Talking the Talk, before we go into the musical break. So hopefully there's something that is there that is entertaining, or at least introduce you to some new faces and new wrestlers out there. So take a listen to that. Take your musical break, and then when we come back on the other side of that, it'll be time to go into the review.
Well, hello everyone! You are looking at the official PCW, and for the people that are a bit slow, that stands for Platinum Championship Wrestling. You're looking at the official title. Now the official champion is technically Hyena Hera, but she has better things to do, and trust me, sweetie, I completely understand. But next week, this title will be on the line because Hyena Hera is going to challenge Rose Gold. Ugh, so hard to say her name. Rose Gold, and a mystery opponent of my choosing. So you don't want to miss it. I highly encourage each and every one of you to be there. But most importantly, look at this amazing title. She does look a bit, oh, excuse me! Excuse me! so hard to find good help and good appreciation. Ugh!
And we are back. And it is also time to do the review of, I guess this, well, not this week's, but a week of WoW that you have previously seen as you were listening to this recording. So here's the slate for the review in question. It is episode 340, episode number 40 for them, season 3, title Deceitful Divas, even though for whatever reason I wrote down Divas. I guess I didn't have the title in front of me at the time when I was doing that. The air date, June the 14th, and the chronological number is 144. Of course, you know that is what I largely work off of when you are looking up the episodes on my channel. So, I believe I've said this the previous episode in review, that wow giveth and then they taketh away. And this is the takeaway. This is when it got to just being what I expect from WoW, more or less. And I think it should be stated and made clear that this is not an indictment of talent. I definitely want to say that. This is not an indictment of talent. However, it is an indictment of bad creative, poor editing choices. I won't say that the editors are doing a bad job, but sometimes they have some bad choices. Or the people that are in charge of them make them have bad choices. The execution of angles, things of that nature, lack of motivation, lack of substance in character, and on and on and on. And speaking of lack of substance and character, we will start the show off with Santana Garrett in the opening segment as she comes out. One of the first things I noticed on the show is that they have somebody out in the crowd. The camera's on this individual out in the crowd, and he is tossing up wild hand signs like W-O-W, yeah. He's like really excited. So we can see where the plants are in the audience just with that. Although I did find it amusing that as he's doing that, right behind him, like two people with Monday Night Raw t-shirts on. And we're not talking old Monday Night Raw t-shirts. We're talking the Raw t-shirts that represent them being on Netflix. So, well, I should say no. What were they at the time? They were the most recent one, USA. They were still using that logo. So it's just amusing to me because I'm sure you will probably very rarely, if ever, see somebody show up at a Monday Night Raw with a WoW shirt. You get it the other way around, maybe not this way. So anyhow, Santana Garrett comes out. She opens up the show, and the commentators are putting over for the big victory that she had over Reina Del Rey. Garrett cuts a promo, and I like Santana Garrett. I do. But I don't know if it's her, and I don't know if it's WoW or a combination of the two. But she has been dwindled down to like the bare bones of a personality. She has been rendered to one of two things as far as WoW is concerned. Either she's doing it for her father, which they've shoehorned in on a number of occasions now, or I'm a former WoW champion. Like, those are her two defining characteristics when we're talking about her on this show. And in this particular case, it was I'm a former WoW champion, so I deserve a shot. This was a pointless promo. It didn't go anywhere, and it was. I'm sorry to say it, because there's a very good chance that she might hear me say this, but I'm sorry to say it, but it's not some sort of riveting promo. It didn't sell the match. It didn't make me excited for it, and it didn't get me motivated. Like, yeah, I want to see Santana Garrett succeed. It didn't accomplish any of those things. It was just the basics. I mean, it's the absolute basics. Then we get Samantha Smart and the Classmaster, who for whatever reasons get Pyro to come out there and talk for 30 seconds. Jeannie Buss is wasting her money. Or more importantly, WoW is wasting Jeannie Buss's money. Pyro costs money. Save that for you actually doing a match, not when you're just walking out there just for the sake of doing it. Anyhow, so Smart comes out and she cuts a promo and skipping past all the crap that she was spouting out. I mean, this is a prime example of somebody like, let me make sure I use as many big words as I can so I can be Samantha Smart in front of the cameras. This is a sign of Marxism. I was like, okay. Because she went out there on the microphone and she asked for a title shot. All right. So anyhow, she comes out there and she gives her speech about being IQ superior, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's ultimately what it always comes down to. But the kicker of that is that they were feeling generous. So now we're going to offer you a title match because we have no problems teaching you another lesson. And I wrote down, okay, so what was the point of all of those number one contenders matches that we had for weeks on end? If all it really took was for her to come out there and say, hey, I'm a former wild champion, I deserve a shot, and they was going to walk out there and give it to her, then why even bother having a number one contenders match at all? This is a pointless segment. And very anticlimactic. It's not like they had some sort of verbal exchange. It's not like they got the crowd or the viewing audiences wound up to see what was going to come up next or see them engage with each other next. In fact, the last time we seen them in the ring and they pointed out, we've beaten you 3 times already. Like, well, if you did that, then why are you giving her another shot? What is the point of any of that? If anything, as the heel, if they felt like she was some sort of threat, they should be ducking and dodging her, which tells me that Class Master and Samantha Smart do not view her as a threat. If they're just going to offer up the title match pretty much unsolicited, I mean, it's not like Garrett goaded her into it or tricked her or got her so riled up and mad that you got your shot. We want, nothing like that. It was just, I want a shot. Here you go. And just as soon as you get that, then Dave McClain's got to jump up and make the match instantly. All right, it's going to happen. Samantha Smart and the Class Master defending the title against Santana Garrett next week on it. I was like, and why is it necessary to get up? There's a microphone right there. Anyhow, it started off really, really off track for me. I'm sure somebody out there is like, all right, Santana Garrett's getting another shot at the title. I'm sure somewhere in the world, somebody looked at that segment and thought it was just the most magical thing ever. But, I mean, in the grand scheme of it, like, this did not make a lot of sense to me. And I repeat, if all it took was to just ask for a title shot to begin with, what was this series of number one contenders matches for? And if Samantha Smart is just not going to be a chicken about trying to keep the title, not be afraid of anybody, not anything like that, then there shouldn't be any problems giving out title matches. They clearly do not see an issue. They're not operating as a heel combination here. Now, that's not to say every heel has to be a chicken shit. Not saying that. But it doesn't come off to me like somebody who just, we don't want to give her a title. That element isn't there. Or this is the babyface that could be the kryptonite to our Superman, for lack of a better term. None of that exists. The heels in WoW almost constantly just go over on the babyfaces, talk down to the babyface, show that they're not afraid of the babyfaces, and beat the babyfaces pretty much clean. It's really a heel promotion. And then they just want you to cheer when that one random babyface actually scores one. So anyhow, we move on. Next segment, the commentators set up the remaining matches for the show. Segment after that is the first match of the episode. Sylvia Sanchez taking on Tormenta. Now, If you've listened to this in recent weeks, you know I like both of these ladies. Sanchez, I have learned a much bigger respect for. Love me some Sylvia Sanchez. My lovely Sylvia Sanchez, I feel so sorry for you. I do. She came out there with vigor and fire, and she was, talking to the camera and all that good stuff like that, but we knew that this match was just as unimportant as anything else that was taking place. It was just pretty much filler, and that's fine. But the filler that came during this match pretty much was your telltale sign that something was going to go down during the main event. So as this is starting up, we get Zayn promoting the main event, saying that there will be no weapons. So we've already started this, and any time, it hasn't failed yet. Anytime they overdo or they start talking about something over and over and over as a thread through the show as something that will not take place, or I've gone out my way to make sure that this thing is going to happen, then you know it's going to happen. Now, never mind the fact that it's a stupid thing that they're promoting. And I'll get back to Sanchez and Tormenta in a second, but I just want to sidebar to say it is such a dumb main event, put air quotes around, stipulation. Now, it's not really a stipulation. They just kind of presented it that way. That being that, okay, well, if you use your weapon, you're going to get disqualified, which should happen anyway. And you'll be fine. Also, which probably should happen anyway. Nothing is different here. Well, not in this particular matchup, but nothing is different in the main event match. It was just words. It sounded good, and he spoke with a lot of inflection. That covered up for the fact that, hey, this match is nothing special. It's just a match. Yeah, you know what that made me think about, and I don't know if this is my old man self talking. There was a band called Blues Traveler from years ago. I don't know if they're still together or not. Their big hit was a song called Hook. And in that song, it's brilliant lyrics. He basically told you everything that you as the listener was going to do. The opening lines of it said, it doesn't matter what I say so long as I sing with inflection. Which is pretty much what David McClain did. He didn't sing it. He just came out like, all right, it's going to be a no disqualification match and you will be fine. He gave a lot of inflection to it, but he didn't say anything. But that's the brilliance of that song. It doesn't matter what I say so long as I sing with inflection that makes you feel I'll convey some inner truth or vast reflection. But I've said nothing so far, and I can keep it up for as long as it takes. And it doesn't matter who you are. But if I'm doing my job, it's your resolve that breaks. Message. And that is what he did, he being David McClain, to the viewing audience with that. Anybody that sat up there and listened to him make the stipulation, quote unquote, on the main event match, and I know I'm supposed to be talking about Sanchez and Tormenta, I'll get back to it. And anybody that listened to that when he made that match, that's exactly what he did. He gave you a lot of inflection, sounded good if you're just listening to that, but if you're not paying attention to the words, then you can lose track of the idea that, hey, there's nothing different here. And I saw it work real time. For those who've listened to this podcast and remember Maestro's still there. Miss Newhire has given up on WoW altogether. She went a couple of weeks, and once she got, I would say, let's say a month and a half, where she could actually see a trend or a storyline attempting to build. at a certain point, she like, why is this happening? Well, that shouldn't happen because that took place. It was the connected dots wasn't there for her, and then she began to lose interest. And the one thing that she was holding on to was that she would see the persons that she likes on the show back up. But Fury didn't come around often enough, so she's like, forget it. She never watches that show anymore. Never. She'll look at anything else under the sun that's in that room while we're working, but she would not look at WoW. She's like, this show's written by children. However, Maestro, when he heard McLean do his thing, now keep in mind, Maestro is not a wrestling connoisseur or overall. He's watched it. He's gone to some shows back in the day. He said, I went to WCW back then, and I think he caught an AEW show recently, but he's not an ongoing wrestling fan. He did not pick up on it. It just sounded good to him. So he's like, yeah. And I'm asking, like, well, what are you happy about? Well, they won't be able to use the weapon. It's like they're not supposed to be able to use the weapon anytime. How's this different? And it didn't hit him until I said that. It did not cross his mind that this is a normal match. Just talked up big. Okay, now that I got that out of the way, and I apologize to both Sanchez and Tormenta because they deserve better. The match that they put on was actually pretty good. At least I had no problem with it because Sanchez works hard. And I honestly feel like she is just being wasted in WoW. Because I don't know if unless they just grab her another Latino partner, that seems to be all that they wanted to do with her. But unless that happens, it's like, well, we can just use her to kind of put some other people over. And she does a good job of that. She works fiery. And I love it. But I hate that she's being wasted there. The only other note that I put here, because the match in and of itself wasn't really important, is that seeing Tormenta here. Now, keep in mind, when this aired, I think I watched AAA WWE Worlds Collide in short order of this particular episode. And it just made it feel old. I mean, it honestly, for me, I can't speak for the world, but for me, it made this match in particular, and by proxy the episode, it made it feel old. Because I knew that what's on WWE's TV is recent. I knew that seeing Tormenta on WWE's television in any capacity, at the very least, was probably going to be maybe a week, something like that. Whereas WoW was months old. And I know I've talked about that, but it just bears repeating. It just made it feel like this is an old product. Particularly when she doesn't carry this look. She didn't have the outfit. And more importantly, she did not have the mask on the Worlds Collide show. But getting back to Sanchez, she put the hurting on Tormenta and got a lot of heat on her. Tormenta obviously is the babyface in this equation for a good deal because it feels like WoW has a very limited supply of babyfaces running around there. And I'm sure that will play in later on because they always have to have a heel versus heel match sometime. Like I said, it's a heel promotion. What can you say? But in any case, the end of the match, I would say, look, if you haven't seen it, it's a short match. It's probably every bit of 4 minutes, maybe. I mean, if we're talking about if we exclude the walkouts and the end match stuff, it's probably about 4 minutes long. Not a lengthy match whatsoever. So Sanchez looks like she's trying to work doubly hard in this limited amount of time. The end of the match, the finish, Sanchez went for a pin, which did not work out, obviously. Tormenta was able to get herself out of it. That was following like a leaping DDT. Now, keep in mind, we haven't had Sanchez really establish a finish yet, but a DDT is about as good a finish as you could probably get, or at least it was at one point in time. I don't know about now. So she picks Tormenta back up after failing to get the cover. She takes a wild swing at Tormenta's head. Tormenta ducks, and she rolls her up 1, 2, 3. And that was it. Sanchez goes down like you would imagine that she would. She sold it great. Like, well, wait, what happened? She had the look of shock and surprise on her face. Tormenta looked like she just got by. So, I mean, it was a cool match. It just did not have anything that it was going to give you any differently than what you had already knew were going to take place. Now, I also want to point out, it feels to me like, and I'm sure I said this too, there are departments in the Wild that just don't seem to have communication. Because for whatever reason, it's like the press was setting this up as if it were a match revenge. But because of Sophia Lopez, what was that, over a year ago? Former client Sophia Lopez, Tormenta, and Sylvia Sanchez seized the opportunity to finally fight out of the ring. They already fought. So I don't know what that necessarily was. So anyhow, and it doesn't affect the show. Be clear about that. That them having those type of printouts and whatnot, because they seem to be doing them a lot more lately, does not affect the show. It's just kind of odd to me. And it feels like this lack of communication between one department to the next, and wow, whether that be the creative to the editing or the show final results getting to the press releases, whoever's doing the update on the metadata that's going out to different stations and things that can read it like a tableau and stuff like that, just feels like the communication just isn't there. The next segment is a promo for the next set of matches. McClain again is foreshadowing no weapons. So that's twice already. We've already got it with the first match, Zayn talking about it. And now we're here with this. And there won't be any weapons, fans. All that good nonsense. The next segment, the Brat Pack versus the Island Girls. I guess that is their official name as they were brought up in the middle of the match. Tiki, Charmorro, and Kalaki, the Island Girl. The first note that I had here is, where's Reina and Gambino? For whatever reasons, neither of them came out. I always feel like the Alliance as a group was just more or less a waste of time. Nothing against anybody that's in that faction. But, I mean, let's be honest. They have not done anything. They haven't given a mission statement as to why they're together. They haven't attempted to go after the championships or any championships for that matter. They really haven't been pushed as a top team. None of those things have happened. But yet, the Alliance exists, and I mean, what are they going to do? It doesn't feel very cohesive, especially, and we talk about this every time Adriana Gambino does come out. What does she do? She walks right past the ring, goes sit down at the commentating booth. Doesn't manage her team at all. And this is worse. She's not even coming out there to begin with. So I honestly just do not know why they are even going out of their way to try to keep them together. At this point, I think the experiment is over with. They should just go ahead and call it a day. Like, look, let's just break this thing up. But I'm sure that won't happen, or at least not until the next series of tapings when they might be talked down or forced into it or something like that. That's probably the only way that's ever going to happen. So Zayn says, as they're coming out, the Island girls are looking to impress Adriana Gambino. I was like, I hope I heard that wrong, because my first thing was, why would they be looking to impress Adriana Gambino? For what? For what reason would they need to do that or want to do that? I mean, and that's all I could put down. I was like, why? Why are they trying to impress her? And, of course, they try to make it sound like, oh, well, they want to be put in line for a title shot. I was like, God, okay. They haven't won anything. How are they getting in line for anything whatsoever? So this match starts off with a rap by Rhythm, of course. And I said that Sanchez was being wasted in that audience. BK Rhythm doing this shtick here is wasted on this audience. It's not doing anything. I'm sorry to say it. I like Rhythm. I like Gianni. I honestly thought at one point in time, I don't know about at this particular moment, I'm not saying that they're bad, but I haven't, looked at over the entire roster again. But at one point in time, I thought Gianni and Rhythm were the best working team that WoW had. And I know they didn't win any championships, but they worked better than Miami Sweet Heat. All due to respect to Miami Sweet Heat. I mean, there was times where they would just, I don't want to say show their rookie card, but they had some brain fart moments like, what do I do? Or leaping directly into a move to let you know that it's full cooperation. But the rap isn't going anywhere. It's not doing anything. It's not building any heat for them. It's not helping move the Brat Pack up the ladder or anything like. They're just wasting time with that. And like I said, I like the team. I do. But I don't know if they got anything to gain off of doing what they're doing beyond that we just want to fill the airtime. Or somebody told them, and make sure you do that when you go out to the ring. Now, at the beginning of this match, Rhythm is pretty much taken control of by the Island Girls. And they did this weird spot in the middle of the match as they're beating up on BK Rhythm. Like they got her in full control. They're keeping away from her partner. They're slinging her into the turnbuckles and cutting the ring off and all that good stuff. But there's a tag between the Island Girls. They get Rhythm down and then decide to, I don't know, give a wrestler's version of patty cake in front while they're over the prone body of BK Rhythm. And when they're doing this, you would expect them to drop elbows together or, I don't know, knee drops, headbutts, some double splash, something. That's what you're expecting as they are doing this. But they stand there, they exchange claps and all that good stuff, and then the next thing you know, Kalaki just walks out. And I'm thinking to myself, what was that for? Why did we have this spot here when it was a complete waste of time? And Rhythm pretty much just had to sit there or lay there and watch him do it until Charmorro goes for a cover. Chamorro's another one that they kind of wasted time on. Maybe time is probably not the appropriate word, but they wasted an opportunity. Well, we'll say that. I ain't saying that she was going to turn around and be the WoW champion, but there was a point where she got, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I know I used to talk about this a lot, but there was a point where she got like 2 wins over Penelope Pink. And it just never went anywhere. I was like, there was a perfect opening right there. And they didn't take it. I don't care what caused them to have that match, because as I understand it, it was more like Pink was filling in for somebody who wasn't there any longer. But whatever. Charmorro beat her. The baby of the roster beat Penelope Pink, former WoW champion. The lady that goes around saying that she's the best damn thing in the WoW. Charmorro got her. You can't tell me that you can't build something off of that. But anyhow, back to the match. As stated before, Rhythm is getting the heat on her. So she can't make it out of the ring. She has just been caught until she is sent into the corner. And as she's sent into the corner and it looks like Charmorro's going to rush in and splash her, Gianni, being the great partner that she is, runs up and grabs BK's arm and pulls her out of the corner and out of harm's way. As they do that, we get a little bit of a tandem move as we have a trip on the outside and a clothesline on the inside, or a double axe handle more appropriately. And I thought, they do some nice tandem moves. They're basic, but they're nice. The only thing I think that downslides them is that they don't visually look as good as some other tandem moves that exist out there. And the audience has been educated to simple things still work. I don't think they've been ever educated to that, especially not this audience. But let's go into the finish here. Oh, and I do like the little triple team back and forth that they do, which in this case they did it on Tiki Charmorro. It's like a clothesline to the back of the head and elbow, and then another clothesline. Some combination that they've come up with. But my only issue with that particular tandem offense that they have is that the camera, in my opinion, is not in a good place to accentuate the hits. You can see what's happening, but it is not accentuated in terms of we're looking at the victim, and you're not necessarily seeing what BK Rhythm, the person behind the victim, is doing. You can pretty much get a good guess, but that's where that goes. So they being the Brat Pack start hooking up on Tiki Charmorro. Charmorro is hanging in there, but she's on fumes at this point, right? She does get a little fire on her at some point. Gianni looks great in there. She's one of my absolute favorites. I can not tell a lie there. I certainly wish that BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni were able to do something and they were recognized in this company, but I've also kind of given up hope on that. But getting back to Gianni and Rhythm, the BK Rhythm and the Brat Pack is what I was looking for. I don't know. I was going by the individual names. But they do some good cheater. Gianni does, at least. We've seen her already run down there and save BK Rhythm. But we also later on in the match see her come up and save Rhythm again as Rhythm is distracting the referee. Gianni comes up and takes Kalaki, the island girl, down. Yanking at hair. She was doing a pretty good job here today. It's also why it makes me so sad that they don't even rank for a title shot. And did you see the power slam that Gianni pulls off? I'm out of sequence here because, like I said, I don't think the match is overly important. It's just nice to watch. But she did a really great power slam on Charmorro. I mean, just the execution and rotation on that, beautiful. It wasn't a snap. It wasn't like, Samoa Joe's or Randy Orton's where they do it and boom, it's all in one big fluid motion. Hers was more like, if you ever seen Jim the Anvil Neidhart pull off a power slam, hers was more like that, where she just It's almost like a move of power. I hoist you up. I'm going to hold you there for a second and then rotate over and boom. Let's give Charmorro some praise. I like what she did with the forcing Gianni's head down onto her knee. Thought that was a nice little touch. They still played into the hard head deal, the coconuts. They used to call them back in the day. Rhythm was able to get out of the way of Kalaki as she was about to do something. She was about to do like a flip on the ground, but then Rhythm gets out of the way and she laughs at him from over the ropes. And then she gets a nice little seated clothesline on her. Then that gets over to the point that I was talking about where I said Gianni was doing her deal. She was the MVP of this match. When she stopped Kalaki from getting up to the top rope, just grabbed her by that blue hair and yanked her down. This match was one match I was happy to be wrong about. I had predicted that the Brat Pack would lose because, the Brat Pack never win. Why would I think that they're going to win? They always go down in flames. And they didn't have a manager here either, so I was pretty sold on the idea just on paper that the Brat Pack was going to lose this thing. But they didn't. They did not. It was good heel stuff that they were doing. And it didn't have to be anything overly complicated. It was just sometimes just grabbing the hair. They did it a couple of times. Snatch that hair, get this person out your way. I was like, all right, good on them. So anyhow, we get towards the end of the match, and we start eliminating some people. All right, Johnny is going for a cover on Tiki Charmorro in large part because Rhythm did what we just talked about. Charmorro has Gianni up. Rhythm grabs the hair and forces Charmorro backwards as she has Gianni in the launch position of the body slam, which causes Gianni to land on top of Charmorro in a pinning position now. Kalaki comes in for the save, and she stops it. Rhythm, for whatever reason, decides that she's going to give her a headbutt, and she pretty much likes about to knock herself cold because I guess WoW still exists in the time frame where every Tongan or every Polynesian or every Samoan or whatever has a head like cement, apparently. So she tries that, gives her the headbutt, but she goes down because she couldn't match up skull to skull with her. But that does open up for Gianni to get Kalaki in a net breaker across the back, for lack of a better term. The one thing that I wish had been a little tighter is when Charmorro hoist. You say it right. When she hoists Gianni up on her shoulders, Gianni rakes the eyes. It didn't look as good as I'm sure she is capable of doing. I am 99% positive that she is capable of doing the eye rake that looks better than what it did on screen here at WoW. But once she does that, Charmorro has to let go because she's raked the eyes, and then Gianni just pops her with a finish, which is like a code breaker. I mean, I'm sure that's what they would call it, but it's got to be a different name, guys. Code breakers is Jericho's. And surprisingly, the Brat Pack win. I mean, I was absolutely shocked. But I also applauded. Good on them. Congratulations, ladies. Now, if that would actually start up a streak of them winning matches, whew, they may save me wanting to see the show. They might. At this point, I feel like I just watch it out of obligation. But it may actually save me wanting to see the show if they were able to get some steam underneath them. Next segment is the promo for the next match, is Fury versus Sandy Shore. Now we go into the match itself. Fury versus Sandy Shore. Now, before this even began, I went into this saying there is no way that Fury should be losing this match. WOW has made it abundantly clear that Spring Break 24/7 is a job team. In fairness to them, somebody's got to do it. But we've made this crystal clear that Spring Break 24/7 and all its members are just a job team. Fury, who I adore, and Sandy Shore I've seen work out. I've never met her. And her alternate persona on the Indies, I never met her. But I do know that she's the talent in that group. And it's just a goddamn shame that she's saddled with that group. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure that Waters and Bay are nice enough people, but they can't deliver what Sandy Shore can. And I don't want to say it puts Sandy in a bad position, but it puts her in a bad position. If she ever thought that being on WOW and being this persona was going to raise her wrestling profile somewhere, it's almost impossible. Who, as an indie promoter, somebody out there would book her just because, and in fact, they have. I do remember there was a Sandy Shore match versus Penelope Pink that took place outside of WOW. Here in this state, by the way. It was in Augusta, Georgia. But I don't think that it was any surprise who was going to win. If Sandy Shore had won, that would have been like a major upset for me and a big shocker. But certainly on WOW's own TV, Sandy Shore has been reduced to just wait for the loss. Fury, on the other hand, is that she's my rudderless boat. What was going on with her and Veronica Varoom a while ago? What happened to that? She was being scouted and then it just stopped. So I honestly, I don't know what we're trying to do. Like, what direction is this going? And then they just paired off with Daisy Lane and Chainsaw a while ago. And now she's back in singles competition. I have no idea what's going on with Fury or what she's supposed to be doing or involved in. They do mention the fact that she was paired off with Chainsaw and Daisy Lane, but you know, there's still no direction for her. McLean, for whatever reason, when she comes out, she being Fury is like, Fury's a member of Heavy Metal. Like, Heavy Metal Sisters don't exist. And it's like he forgot that for a second. I find that he has done this more often lately. Where, going back to what I said at the beginning, it's like one thing does not connect to the other. And David McLean is included in that. The ring announcer can say what the stipulations are right in front of him, and then he'll say something completely different. Remember the Reina Del Rey Classmaster match where it was said to be non-title, but then at the end of it, he's like, all right, another successful title defense. I swear it's like they have no communication between one to the other, or he doesn't pay attention to what's happening. So I don't know. This was also mentioned, not in the show, but the press release, where it was going to be Sandy Shore accompanied by both members of Spring Break 24/7, as they listed them as her fellow beach besties, Brittany Bay and Crystal Waters, but as we know, Crystal Waters did not appear. What did they say, that she was injured or something like that? But seriously, why make them look any worse? Because I'm sure whether Crystal Waters was out there or not, Fury was going to win. And this match is very much like the first one. It was probably like 4 or 5 minutes, I don't even say 5 minutes, like 3 or 4 minutes. Very, very easy to sit there and watch because it's not going to go anywhere. It's just, let's see how she's going to lose this week. That's basically what it comes down to. And I love going through some of the comments because, inevitably you're going to get somebody in there that lets you know exactly why some of these people are watching WoW. The one that I mentioned in particular here, if you go to Fury versus Sandy Shore looks great in tan pantyhose. So we know he's watching the match. We know what he's looking at it for. It's like I said, you're going to get a certain amount of people that's going to watch that show just because there are women in tights. Whether that's right, whether that's wrong, that's just the way that is happening. Now, the other Spring Break 24/7 team and WoW never disappoint, win or lose in their awesome match. Or awesome M because they didn't finish what they were saying. Like, how do they not never disappoint? They lose all the time. They lose constantly. And two of them are not good. And I don't mean that in good or bad personality. I mean, they're not good in the ring. I've said that about Crystal Waters since she's been there. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's hurting somebody's feelings, but she should not take it that way. You're being put on television sooner than what you need to be there. It's a national product, and they need to have everybody fired on all cylinders more often than not. But WoW is just perfectly fine. Just, we'll train you up and then go ahead. Anyhow, this is another match that, albeit nice to see, really doesn't mean anything. There's nothing here. You can enjoy it for what it is. And in fact, I would say, go ahead and watch it. Just because Sandy Shore has the gimmick of being Sandy Shore and she's part of this ridiculous team, doesn't mean that she is an accomplished or good wrestler. Now, there was a spot in the match that I didn't necessarily care for, and I wish they'd have just edited it out or something like that. It was Fury sends Shore into the ropes. Shore grabs onto the ropes so she doesn't rebound, which makes Fury have to stand there. And then Shore kicks her leg around out of the rope all the way around so she can come back into the ropes and kick Fury in the stomach. Which, I don't know, just seemed a little bit overdone for me, but what do I know? So anyhow, let's get to the end of this thing, because if you can offer up anything here, is that Shore was at least competitive. Brittany Bay served absolutely no purpose on being out there, and you talk about reversal of fortunes. Why is Bay there? Adriana Gambino can't be bothered to come out with a team, but Brittany Bay comes out and she is completely useless. I mean, absolutely useless. Fury tosses Sandy Shore out, which she knocks off the apron, which basically makes her fall onto her own partner. And then Bay's just down. She takes a kick in the stomach, and then Fury comes up against Shore and puts her back in the ring. Bay can't do anything. First off, she's a babyface, so she can't really interfere. She's not evening out any odds because Fury doesn't have anybody in her corner, which only serves to make the heel, again, look strong. Notice the theme here. The heels on this show don't need any assistance. I know they like to try to portray them as like, oh, they cheated because they did some cheap thing. But WoW needs to understand the difference between being cheap with a P and cheat with a T. Her knocking Sandy Shore off of the apron was not cheating. It was cheap. It could be considered unsportsmanlike, but she didn't break any rules. But again, why is Bay there? I'm sure it would make a lot of sense if Fury had somebody out there with her, or if Babe was an actual functioning part of this unit. But she didn't have that. She was just there. And she went down just as easy as anything. So the highlight here is Fury catching Sandy Shore in a sky-high sit-out powerbomb. That is one. The next thing that I guess would be, the overall highlight I'll use loosely, double clothesline, which sets both of them down to the mat, which causes, Shore to crawl. She's trying to get over to the turnbuckle so she can pull herself up to her feet and start fighting back. You got to give her credit, and this much, and that she was more competitive than probably anything that I've seen anybody on Spring Break 24/7 do, up to and including a full Nelson slam. Well, I shouldn't say slam, full Nelson face buster. But Fury got out of that. We get to the end of this. Shore tried to give her like a pump kick. Fury just basically gave her the old bitch slap. And then she applied the Koji clutch, and then Sandy Shore tapped out. There we go. And I mean, there's really not much else to it. And the heel succeeds again. I don't know what it is that WoW has that they love their heels, but they do. They love their heels, man. There are points in the match where the time was off a little bit, but it's certainly nothing to complain about. And it was a fine match. It was a fun match. It just didn't have anything, and it wasn't going anywhere. This is a take it or leave it match. If you happen to watch it, I'm pretty sure you would enjoy the 3.5 to 4 minutes that they are actually running it. But outside of that, don't know. The next segment is a promo for the upcoming main event match. And they continue, the commentators do, to beat you in the head with that the sock of rocks is banned. At this point, as I'm watching the show, I was 100% positive. Well, I'm not even going to say at this point, because I know I called it previous to that. I said, since they put this stipulation on, something's got to happen. And I was about 80% sure then, but I was relatively sure. By this point in the show, I was absolutely sure. I was 100% like, yeah, something's going to happen. They just keep going on and on and on about the Saga Rocks. It's going to be banned. Saga Rocks. Which I'm not even a big fan of that weapon to begin with. Like, I can't imagine slinging a sock full of rocks at a high velocity at somebody's skull and expecting them not to be in the hospital. I mean, I think I would have fractured it by now or something. Especially if you've been hit in the head with it multiple times. But anyway, so that was another case of complete foreshadowing by McLean and Zane. Segment after that is the website spot, which needs to be updated. I have said this before. This is kind of their deal. It's not that they don't have clips that show current stuff. It's that they also use clips that don't have current stuff. In fact, I'll even go one further. And for you new listeners out there who don't know, yes, I work at a television hub. That is the shoot job, which is where I see WoW. And as such, I also see the promos that WoW sends out and the promos for a lot of stations. One television show that's in syndication that updates their promos, let's say every 6 to 8 months. And I've seen at least 3 different versions of them since we've gotten it. The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory, old show, but whatever promos that are going out in syndication for them, they get updated. They do not keep the same ones that they had from like 2-3 years ago. I can tell you for a fact that while in Tampa, because I can recall that station off the top of my head, WTOG. That station has had the same WoW promo since WoW started 3 years ago. We're talking about this recent run. It's had the same promo since they began, which means they're showing if there's 10 people on the promo, 8 of them aren't there anymore. Glitch the Game of Tonga Twins, Ice Cold. I mean, yeah, all right, she changed the gimmick. But I'm just saying it's not an updated thing. WoW should do something about that. And I only thought about that because I just talked about the website spot needed to be updated. But that's me yelling at a brick wall. It's not going anywhere. The next segment, Sibley Scoles doing her backstage thing. The first thing I wrote down is, what is Scoles looking at? It is getting to the point where it's starting to annoy me. Like before I was able to avoid it when her segment came up, I honestly couldn't. I'm not saying couldn't. I saw it, but it didn't get me yet. But now I can't not see it. Every time she does a promo or a backstage segment or whatever by herself, and sometimes with others for that matter, she's always looking up or off to the side or something like that. She's not looking at the camera. And that is just driving me up the wall that she does. Like, especially considering that she's a professional. It's not like they just hired her fresh out of college. She does this. She's a sideline reporter. That's her whole gimmick. That they put out a press release for this woman. And it goes back to what I've been saying about some of the other talents that's been on WoW, the wrestlers in particular. Like, WoW doesn't help get them over. WoW drags them down. And I don't think Scoles is any different. If she has any credibility, forget what she's doing on WoW. Because from what I'm understanding, if you look at her YouTube channel and social media and whatnot, she pushed the idea that she was there for was it Jake Paul Tyson, and she's part of Raiders Nation and stuff like that, sideline reporter, all that good stuff. So we know she knows how to look at the camera. But for whatever reasons here, it doesn't happen. And I don't understand why. Is it somebody that's up there holding cue cards? Or did they not pop for a teleprompter? Which again, that would be hilarious if that were the case. Like, well, we didn't save enough money for a teleprompter, so here you go. We're just going to write this shit down and you read it. But seriously, what is she looking at? I wish that she would just reach out and contact me and say, look, this is why I'm looking off screen because of this. Because it is annoying. Especially when I know that she is a professional. She's been paid to do this. She's done this already. You would have an excuse if it was somebody that hadn't did it and they're just out of school. They're just trying to get some experience. I have said before, and I don't mean this as any ill will to Sibley, it's like she wasn't worth the money that they're paying her. Whatever it is. She's not worth the money that they're paying her. It's another one of those things where they tried to make a big deal about it, but it meant nothing. She can deliver well on the microphone. She's very easy on the eyes. She draws more attention to herself than she probably should. But she's good in certain aspects of that. And she's had her moments on that show where she delivered very well. I don't want to say that every time she's been on screen has just been some sort of disaster. That's not true. But what I can say is that more often than not, it seems like there's something else that's going on behind the camera that she is catching her attention constantly. So anyhow, back to the since I just read my note. Back to the theme at hand here, that it doesn't feel like one segment knows or one department doesn't know what the other department is doing. Scoles made it out to be an issue where Lana Star doesn't know what side she's going to be on. And I wrote, when did this happen? At what point in this storyline, in this angle, did it ever cross that Lana Star did not know who she's aligned with? And why would they allow this to air? Why would they allow Sibley's segment to air saying this when you know it hasn't happened? It kills me with that. And broken record. Doesn't bother me as a wrestling fan, bothers me as an editor. Why is somebody not in that room saying, hey, why are you keeping this segment in here? We haven't talked about that. Kill that segment. Let's put something else in there. Give me some promos that they did backstage that we can insert or something. Or give me a loose match that's about 3 minutes long. You know you got some. Why would anybody allow that with that specific statement in it to air on TV when there's absolutely nothing to back that up? When was it ever a question of Lana Star's loyalty? It's like they just told her a bunch of things to say and like we'll just include it just in case. How do you not know? And even if you didn't know at the time that you recorded it, why is it still in the finished product? This is what I mean when I was like, they gave me something good that I actually say, hey, I enjoyed this episode the week prior to this. But this episode, these things here that just make you feel like I don't think that they have a goddamn clue to what's going on from one thing to the next. And the fact that no one can tell Majors or McLean, I'm assuming, are the final say in this. And because of that, no one can tell either one of them, hey, you should probably take that out. It's ridiculous. Anyhow, the next segment past that is while doing a video recap, trying to show the effects of the Fab Four breaking up and, trying to break the Heat apart. I wrote, this is a poorly built angle. But all of the angles are poorly built. McLean's voiceover lends into the self-doubt on the twins. They're like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's very melodramatic. I don't know if there was enough of a build or enough reason for anybody to think that they were going to be at odds with each other, they being Miami Sweet Heat. And as it was brought up to me, as we were watching this together, my other wrestling buddy, CeeLo there, like this entire angle was built on the idea that this spot in the match was going to happen, that they were going to be on opposite sides of the ring so that both of the members can grab chairs that just happened to be there. It's like, what was going to happen if those chairs weren't there? Or they didn't fall in that specific order. It's like, what was supposed to happen if that didn't take place? How are they going to finish that up? If they knew that they weren't ever going to hit each other and it was dependent on the chairs being there in order for them to turn, how is this supposed to resolve if that weren't the case? And I agree with him. Like, you got a good point, because it may have been a different issue if, say, HollySwag ran over there and told somebody to get up, give me this chair, it would have seemed more spontaneous. Maybe. I mean, I didn't particularly care for the finish to begin with, because they clearly were just going into a wrestling match. But by the looks of this video, the video recap, they tried to put so much effort into the sisters about to fall apart, but it's family over, that whole thing that they was trying to do. It's something to question. Like, I don't know who was supposed to buy into that. I'm sure somebody did, but I don't know who was supposed to. And so it comes down to this. It's like, all right, the sisters stick together, and it's made it to this point that Miami Sweet Heat is going to take on the Penelope Pink and HollySwag in this the Bad 4 Civil War. And, of course, there's the Soccer Rocks angle that has been plaguing this episode. And we're about to get to that in a moment. The next segment was the We Are Wild spot, which I wrote, this is nice, I guess. I didn't really feel one way about it or another. Segment after that is the promos for Santana Garrett versus this Classmaster for the Wild Championship that she just asked for and she got. And then we go to the final segment of the show. Miami's Sweet Heat, the 4-time Wild Tag Team Champions, taking on Penelope Pink and HollySwag with Lana Star. The Heat come out first and they get attacked before the match begins by Pink and Swag, and McLean carries on about the Soccer Rocks and that they'll be disqualified if it's used. And again, aren't they supposed to be disqualified if they use it? How is that supposed to be anything different? And just to pause this train of thought for a second, the other issue that he put in here was that, well, they'll be fined. Now, bear in mind, on their own program, they have shown you that the fine means nothing. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why something as simple as the fine could not be sold better. In their own universe, they made it clear that the fines mean nothing. The only persons that money was an issue to was the mother truckers. That's it. Everybody else is like, $5,000, no problem. I have it for you in the morning. What was the first fine thing? Oh, top tier? Well, they'll be fined for breaking this girl's leg. And then they just showed up and did it again. Now, the angle was stupid and it was poorly executed, but the overall narrative there was that they attacked somebody, they got fined for it, they didn't care about the fine, did it again, and laughed in the referee's face over it. So the fine didn't do anything. The next time we saw that I can recall, Abilene Maverick. Abilene, if you don't leave this ringside right now with Paola Mayfield so she can have a one-on-one match without your interference, or helping her, I'm going to fine you $5,000. And Abilene Maverick refuses to leave. Repeat that. She refused to leave in the face of a $5,000 fine. The referees had to drag her out of there. So again, what does the fine mean? What does a fine mean in WoW? They have already educated the audience that, all right, well, so what? They'll pay the $50 and they'll move on. Because it can't be anything high. It cannot be anything high. No one there is some sort of goddamn millionaire over being at WoW. So it cannot be anything of a substantial fee. But that. So you have a match that's built around the idea that, well, if they use a weapon, I'll have to disqualify them. as if that was some sort of big change, and that they'll be fined in a location that fines have been proven to be ineffective at best. I just had to get that out. Sorry. So, match starts. Heat is attacked before the bell. They're using that angle where, we can't disqualify him because, the match hasn't officially started. They're not in the ring. However they defined it. But it's essentially that. It's you can't disqualify me yet because the match hadn't started. So that makes all the difference in the world that, we can't do anything about it. We're powerless. I know they attacked him, but whatever. And to show the conflict that Lana Star had, she walked out with HollySwag and Penelope Pink, watching them beat up on her former 4-time tag team champions with absolutely zero remorse. So I guess that mystery's solved. I'm sure we would have never figured that out if she hadn't done that. So they come out and they start, Penelope Pink and HollySwag come out and attack Miami Sweet Heat. And they're doing this on the outside of the ring. The Heat smacking with their jackets at one point. And I don't know if Pink was expecting. It looked like she looked like she almost was mad there for a second, but she still tossed in some working shots. But anyhow, she gets one in the head from Lori. Swag gets the jacket across her head and back by Lindsay. That is before Lindsay is thrown or shot into the rail. And we got some fans in the overacting section of Wild like, oh my God, don't do that. Lana Star's over there laughing at the pain that's being inflicted on them. And we got my favorite referee, the guy that just sits up there and let me not pretend. No, that dude's not good. The referee with the shaved head, the one that moved his body into place so that Samantha Smart could get the key out of his pocket. The same one that took a clothesline from Abilene Maverick and was out cold for like 5 minutes. Him. So they finally get the match going in the ring. Now keep in mind that when they came out, Lana Star is carrying the weapon that Dave McClain said that, well, if they use that, then they'll be fined. So you already know that if thing was going to come into play, just seeing it. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say that Swag and Pink didn't do a good job. They did an outstanding job for what they were trying to do. I just don't think that the creative here is particularly good. I mean, other than McClain being able to get on a microphone and say that it's going to be no disqualification or it's going to be no uses of socks and rocks, as he calls it. Other than him being able to do that, I don't understand what the point was of making this big announcement that they weren't going to be able to use it or that they were going to be fined if they did. There's absolutely nothing that was going to be gained off of that. Nothing. So Lindsay is the one that get caught in the ring with Pink and Swag, and they're beating up on her. And, that's all well and good, right? Because they're getting the heat on her. I also do not understand what the Swag-Pink connection is as they have gone through the whole partners that don't necessarily get along thing. And they still kind of feed that every so often. I mean, here they seem pretty unison. But every once in a while, it still comes back up. But it is neither here nor there in the grand scheme of the match. I only bring that up because it didn't seem to go anywhere. And I'm not sure if they had any sort of resolution. The other thing is that how many times can Laura get knocked off of the apron? Like they would just run across there and like nail her with a forearm shot or clothesline or punch in the mouth. And she, every time almost, she just stood there and watched them do it. They just charge across the ring and bam, off to the floor she goes. Then they get the old photo op, the movie poster, whatever. I don't know what they call the thing. Which is also why I said they don't need every heel to come out there and do their version of this. Every heel does not need to have a time where they go drag somebody over to the hard camera on the second rope and then sit on top of whoever the babyface or the opponent happens to be just so they can pose for about 2 or 3 seconds and then get them back into the ring. It should have been a one faction / team thing. But as it is, you got the Alliance do it. Fury does it. Not top tier. The Fab Four do it. Well, maybe top tier. I don't remember if they do or not. It wouldn't shock me. But the end result is the same. They do not need to have a bunch of people doing it. It would have meant something else if it was just the one. But I guess we're past that because, they don't want to tell somebody no, I guess. So the bulk of this match is Swag and Pink beating up on Lindsay Carlson. That is the bulk of it. She is taking the heat, right? We finally get to a point where Lindsay's able to get herself out of harm's way because it looks like Swag is trying to go for a hitch and ditch until Lindsay's able to reverse it. And reverse that into a German suplex, which puts her down. And despite the fact that she's been in control and Lindsay's taking the beating, that one German suplex that she gave her is enough to keep Swag down in a good amount of time so that tags, plural, can be made. I will give this much to it because Swag is smart. She sold it like it was the back of her head. So it could be argued that, all right, maybe she just had her, we used to call it getting the bell rung back in the day. I don't know if they use that now. But she sold that aspect of it. Like I gotta get my thoughts combobulated. But we got both of them. They make the tag. Swag tags out to Pink. Lindsay tags out to Lori. Lori comes in like a house of fire. A couple of clotheslines. Drop kick. Body slam. So they're doing the old babyface comeback thing. And I'm going to just say it by default. The Heat are the babyfaces here. But this is also the breakdown of where it's like, all right, we know where we're supposed to be, so let's just do that. At the end, Lori goes to the cover on Pink. Swag stops her. She kicks her and gets her off. Lori then crawls over to their normal corner to go and get up for the Fab Jab, which happens to be their opponent's corner this time. Now, why she went over there to do it, I don't know. But she did. So, and this is directly after Swag beats her up or stops the cover and gets out of there. Lindsay then comes in and chops down HollySwag and then tosses her out. Of course, tosses her out to her side. Pink is left in the ring. Pink is hoisted up. She's getting ready to get hit with a Fab Jab. And then here comes Swag with her rocks. Knocks Lori off of the top rope. Hits Lindsay in the head with the rock. Saving Penelope Pink after she's already got sidewalk slammed by the, not by the sock of rocks, but by Lindsay. And then HollySwag, as Penelope Pink is holding Lori, smacks her in the face with the rocks too and knocks her out cold. McLean is calling all this cheating in front of his face and does nothing. Nothing. I don't know why he couldn't do anything. He just didn't. So both members of Miami Sweet Heat are knocked out, and Swag and Pink retain via disqualification. So, yes, technically they did lose, Pink and Swag. But it is by disqualification, not by pinfall. So, therefore, the championships do not change. And that was the match, and you heard the commentators yelling and carrying on like, oh, I thought that they just used the rocks. And they're like, God. Why? Why is this happening? Especially considering that, you have this show and it's got this paradox, we'll call it. Well, we got the matchmaker and the rule maker and the lead interviewer and the lead commentator, all that stuff just rolled into one sitting at ringside, who we have seen make decisions on the spur of the moment. But yet, here somehow he's just incapable of doing it. Cannot make it happen. A couple of weeks ago, on episode 143, it was Genesis and Princess Aussie. Why do I bring this up exactly? Well, I'll tell you. Because it was another one of those cases of he can't do anything until he can. Genesis pins Princess Aussie, get her feet on the ropes. Ozzy cuts a promo at the end, basically begging Dave McClain to do something about it. It's like, well, we can't do anything about it. But then goddamn 20 minutes later, he's making a decision on the spur of the moment. If he cannot see how that is an issue of any sort, then this is something that's never going to change. David McClain, has to see that as an issue before anything of any use is ever going to take place as it regards to that. Because if you don't, that's never going to change. It's never going anywhere. It is never going anywhere. So long as he looks at himself as a vital component to that show. And it's a shame. It is a shame. Self-awareness is difficult. And I will absolutely agree. Self-awareness is not often easy. It is sometimes a very difficult thing to be able to point out your own flaw. Or point out that this thing that I'm doing may adversely affect what's going on around me. I don't believe that he views him making those decisions or him being the commentator, but yet I'm still also about the boss here as some sort of issue or something that needs to be fixed. It just always feels like he's just perfectly fine with this, and so long as he's able to do what he's doing, then what's the issue? It is interesting. And I do firmly believe that it's not that other people in that company / and or roster do not see the things that I see. I'm not going to sit here and say that no one on that roster does not see the things that I see. I'm actually positive that several of them do. But it goes back to what I said before. They can't do anything about it. They cannot make the changes on WoW that WoW probably needs to have. Whether that be a more upgraded and updated shooting schedule. Whether that be somebody going over to creative with a fine-tooth comb. Whether that be somebody sitting in the editing booth and making sure that everything that airs makes sense or is something that we actually referenced. Those things. If you can't see any of those as a problem, including himself, they're never going anywhere. It is never going anywhere, and it's never changing. Sorry to end that on a downer, guys, but that's the way that it is. It is just not going to go anywhere so long as he is in charge of that. Somebody's got to tell him, and I'm pretty sure they don't want to, because if they do, they may just lose something. That might be their job. I don't know. I know he looks like a nice guy on TV, but he might have a varying opinion of him from different people. So there we have it, folks. That was the episode. I almost did not even want to go through the entirety of this thing. I mean, it was such a disappointing follow-up. It's the best I can say. This was a disappointing follow-up to an episode that I liked. Even if I didn't agree with every step of creative that it had, as I said in that particular episode, I thought the good outweighed the bad. Here, not so much. I do not feel like the good outweighs the bad in this environment. But since we are preparing for walking in the next episode, and seeing what's going to be going on there, let's take a read here to what exactly happened on this next episode. So this is the show preview, I guess you want to call it that. We'll go off into this little piece before we close things up, because as I'm recording this, I haven't seen it yet, so bear with me. I'm sure this is releasing well after it aired. So let's see here. This is going to be season 3, episode 41. So 341, and that'll be my chronological 145. And it states, it's a clash of titans in tonight's main event as superhero Santana Garrett gets her big chance to face IQ superior Samantha Smart's mentee, the Classmaster. Will Santana Garrett finally be able to outsmart the Master and walk away with the highest prize in all of women's wrestling, the Wild World Championship title? Top tiers, Coach Campanelli, Candy Crush, and Gloria Glitter remain at the top of the food chain in the Wild's Trios division, but Roxy Fierce is hell-bent on stopping them once and for all with the help of Chantella Cella and Brittaney Bay of Spring Break 24/7. It's been a long season for Dojo's defenders Kara Kai without Tara Strike by her side, but she presses on solo in tonight's singles action against Scout Parker. In singles action, magnificent Miranda Mirage battles Chainsaw, who has her devoted partner Daisy Lane by her side. Questions. And I'm sure I will get these answers in spades, but questions. 1. Top of what trios division? There is no trios division. Just random people that's thrown together to fulfill a match. WoW doesn't have a trios division. Stop trying to sell me on this idea that we got trios. These were pointless titles. Pointless titles. Vanity belts is what I call them, and I stick to that. They are vanity belts. Somebody backstage complained enough until they got something given to them. And there's no group of people. I was like, do they even have, if you take Spring Break 24/7, and let's be honest, that Spring Break 24/7 is never going to win any titles. If you take them off of the table, is there another trios group, so to speak? Or is it just another case of we have to throw these things together as much as we can? You look like you're free, and that's what this match looks like. Why is Brittaney Bay in this? Does she belong to Spring Break 24/7? Why is she in this match? Where are the other baby faces at? Kalaki, and they just cannot get past Tara Strike. Anytime they mention her, they have to mention, well, Tara Strike's out, but she has to do, look, just move on. And I'm going to tell you, if Tara Strike is lucky or smart, she'll just get up out of there. Let me just keep moving. Tara Strike is dead. Let's just stick with Tootie Lynn. And Magnificent Miranda Mirage, of course, they give me the full name, against Chainsaw. I can't imagine that Chainsaw will be losing this. I cannot. So anyhow, wasn't Miranda Mirage a heel? Now that I'm saying this out loud, wasn't she a heel? I could have swore that she was. We know it well. I was going to say we know that Chainsaw and Daisy Lane are, but honestly, who knows? WoW can be very non-committal when it comes to stuff like that. I assume Chainsaw's a heel. But even if she were solidly a heel here, like, why are these two wrestling each other? For what? I'm going to pull for Scout Parker. I'm sure Chainsaw is going to win in her match against Mirage. There's no reason for Miranda Mirage to win anything there. Kai, she just been on a losing streak, so who knows? Who cares about the trios title? I'm sure that top tier win, and I have to sit there and listen to them drone on about we're the greatest team in all of professional wrestling. They're not even the greatest team on their own show. They just exist in their own little bubble, and they're happy being the big fish in the small pond. That small pond being the trios division, because they're the only ones that's in it. And they only got room to allow one other group in it at a time. And that group is going to just be slammed together from whoever happens to be available in the locker room that day. And as far as the main event is concerned, I don't know. Who knows? They may just want to keep a heel on top forever. Or just make a bunch of other contenders matches. Will we beat Santana Garrett? Give us a new challenge. All right, there'll be no one, just something like that. Who knows? It's ridiculous. But I shouldn't get worked up about things that haven't happened for me yet. And like I said, by the time you listen to this, you probably would have already heard it or seen it. So I have to catch up with you out there listening. And I will begin to do that in, I guess, about a week or so. Okay, so we've gotten through this episode. I cannot wait to take a look at what's happening on the next one. But in the meantime, if you are so kind and inclined to support the show, please, if you listen to this on YouTube, do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe it. It's also, very nice to have that kind of support going into the show, whether that be a subscription or liking the video or what have you. It does help. I know it feels small and it feels incremental, but it does help. So just to let you know, if you've done it, thank you. If you, for whatever reasons, have not or cannot be able to find me on YouTube or greater podcast platforms everywhere, which is where we're located, greater podcast platforms everywhere, then you know what you can do? You can go to WPNWrestling.com. WPNWrestling.com. It is the centerpiece, nexus for all things that come on in the WPN. That being, all videos have gone there. All podcasts have gone there. We got videos dating back to 2013, and who knows how many podcasts that got happened on that thing. Now that I think about it, this got to be a bunch. Because some of those things date back to, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. It was the internet radio station that I was on now. It's a shame because at the time when I had the interviews at that particular or on that particular internet radio station, I had Mercedes Martinez there. And couple of Malaya Hosaka. This is before WoW, obviously. Candy Divine. And a couple of other ones that I can't recall off the top of my head, but I will say the shame is that once they decided, hey, we're going to charge you guys and change the billing structure, they just purged everybody's account, and mine was not any different. I did not get the information in time for me to go ahead and save it. So, damn it. Some of those interviews lost to time. I'm still looking through hard drives to see if I have a copy of it somewhere. Or copies. But anyhow, those are the places that you can catch me. WPNWrestling.com, our YouTube channel, and our Podbean. Or, again, like where you get your greater podcasts everywhere. Whether that be through, the Stitcher still exists, I can't remember. Apple Play, Spotify, YouTube podcasts, so on and so forth. We're on all of those. So take your pick. And if I know of the podcast platform that you're on and you don't see me, then I will endeavor to put it in there. All you got to do is let me know. And on that note, I want to thank you all for listening to the show. It is always a pleasure to have you give me a portion of your day. I really appreciate it. And I will close it by saying, hey, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long. And we'll see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.